This is an open source brain talk, but I would like you for this moment that if you have your forward-looking electron searching memory systems going 2 seconds into my talk, I want you to dial that back to 2 nanoseconds, because I don't want to hear what I'm hearing through the headphones before I say it. I want to tell you that according to the newspaper today, online of course, the first female president has admitted to sending sexually explicit videos when she was a teenager in high school, and those are now available on the internet, and the ripple it caused in the world was hardly worth noticing. We are entering into a time now when everybody's going to know everything about us, when we're practically going to be incapable of being private, when one of the most popular communications media is basically keeping ourselves up on gossip every single second of every single day, when we can set up virtual personalities to track our tweets while we sleep, when we can do all this sort of thing, but also when, oh, by the way, take off your specs or dial them down so that they're blind, so I don't want this completely recorded in 4K resolution. We're only going to put it on YouTube, which is only 2K resolution. I'm sorry. What are we talking about here? We're talking about too much information. We're heading into a time period when basically there will be no secrets, when you'll not be allowed to be a teenager if certain things continue to happen, such as social judgment. We are always judged. We are warned, don't put this thing up on YouTube or wherever, don't do this, don't sext, don't do that sort of thing, because when you look for a job as you grow up, they're going to find out about this. It's going to be in your curriculum vitae, and it's going to be out there, and they're going to turn you down. But what if everybody has those skeletons in their closets? What if the job you're searching for, the person you're interviewing with, you have a dossier on? So they come up to you and say, you know, you did this when you were 2.5 years old, and we don't like that. And you go back and say, yeah, but you were 1 when you did this, and it was really nasty. Now, I've been at this, I continue to think of myself as a young Turk, you know, like some of the people who have more hair than I do who write science fiction. But the fact is, I've been working in this area for 30 years now. And back in the 1980s, when I was doing essays for the Science Fiction Writers of America Forum, I had a piece called 1980 Fortran, in which I said, you know, that Big Brother would be watching us, but it was perfectly obvious with the spread of all of these laptops and surveillance systems and everything, the private surveillance systems, that we could perfectly easily keep track of Big Brother too. And if they don't have anything on you, we don't have anything on them. It's a trade-off. In the late 1980s, early 1990s, in a book called Queen of Angels and its sequel Slant, I discussed this whole CCTV revolution where every street corner was wired for video and sound and everything was recorded. And in Slant, I suggested that if a law enforcement officer wanted to have access to this, they had to go through a special court of public information to get access for legal purposes. That stuff would all be archived. It could be around, you know, you could have 50 years of recordings of every street corner, every shop, everything, everywhere. I thought that was pretty cool. And then it occurred to me, and I think to a couple other writers at the same time, that you're going to have 4K cameras in your glasses very shortly, that not only are they going to project your 3D TV onto your lenses, which we've been talking about for a long time, but they're going to record. You're going to have eyes in the back of your head recording. Your cars are going to have recording devices. They're going to have cameras in the bumper such that if a car gets 10 feet away from you, you take a picture of it and upload it to the police. And 2 or 3 of those in an hour on the freeway, and you get a ticket sent to you. Front cameras, back cameras, side cameras, police cars are all going to be completely wired. Cops can't get away with anything anymore. You know, it's almost like being in an episode of, I don't know, Southland or Law and Order or something, where you're actually there in the car listening to the cops talk, and as I understand it, without a scriptwriter, cops really aren't that eloquent. But it's all going to be there, and it's all going to be recorded. How we maintain privacy, how we allow access for certain functions. Libertarians would like us to have all access to this, all access passed to everybody's life. That's a good thing. I think David Brin has argued for that, total transparency. It's a good point. But what if you do something as a teenager that you don't want people to know about? Like steal something, or rape somebody, or molest a cat, or whatever. What if you're doing all of these things and, you know, you've turned a corner, you're no longer doing that sort of thing, but it comes back to haunt you? This strips something of the lubrication off of the gears of society when you can't get away with anything. There's an idealism here which I find interesting, which basically tells us, well, if we all know everything about everybody else, then we're not going to care anymore. I mean, it's all embarrassing, and it's just, oh, that I was a different person when I did that. But what if society maintains and goes through certain periods of increasing conservatism or social judgment or Puritanism or whatever, such that 30 years ago, in our open source society, everything was available, and then suddenly they start looking back and they start judging again. And they put the clamps down on you. And you have almost this Calvinist approach to your past and your technology, where if you didn't do these things or they weren't recorded, you are more rapidly elevated. And we start breaking out the guidelines of who's bad and who's good again. Think that's impossible? No, I don't think so. We're living through that period right now, aren't we? We don't know who to hate. We really don't. Our social immune system is going through these paroxysms of confusion of who do we hate? Who are we supposed to be hating? You can't do it with communists anymore. We can't even call them communists, for God's sake. We've got to call them socialists or something like that. We need somebody to hate. What if we start turning in on ourselves? The immune system of social judgment serves several purposes. One, you are ostracized if you behave badly, really badly. You are incarcerated, removed from society. But those levels of judgment pass back and forth. And what if in 20 years, as you get older, your past still comes back to haunt you, even though you laid down the rules as a major guru of technology back in 2010 and said, don't worry about it, people. Don't worry about it. It's all open. It's all there. But then they find out that you actually did have a caffeine habit back in 2010. And caffeine is now illegal because they discovered that it turns you into homo superior or something like that. I don't know. I can make this stuff up, but where's my coffee? Anyway, consider this society then, which we are in right now, where literally you have a complete record of your life. You can even have a soundtrack to it if you want. You can have a Bernard Herrmann soundtrack as you drive on the freeway, and it'll sound like something out of a Hitchcock movie, and it'll be great. And later you can record it back and play it back for your friends, your kids, and they'll be vastly bored. Remember slideshows? Some of you are old enough here to remember when the family slides were trotted out. Now imagine that you're in somebody's home and there are wall screen TVs and they're all playing 24/7 the last 3 weeks. Unedited. Too much information. How much of this do we really want? We can do it, but how much of this do we really want? If we're tweeting all the time and we're totally gossiping with each other, we don't have time to read books. Please take time to read books. Please. Eventually, we won't have time to watch movies. Someday, I hope you will be able to watch movies. We won't have time to be private. We will have lives that are totally recorded, totally available to everybody, and then there will be the discouraging fact that no one wants to see it. Think of all the thousands of tweets that no one's reading. Think of all the videos on YouTube that are lonely, that don't have cats on them. Think of all the things on YouTube that you don't want to see, and so you block. And eventually, as we get more and more tired of this openness, we start putting these vast swaths of sticky tape over most of society, and we narrow our range down to a quiet forest where we can sit on a log and listen to the birds tweeting. When we can do this, and we want to go back. Right now, the brave new world is, yes, everybody can know everything about everybody else. We can track you on the freeway, we can track you from the police car, we can track you in the supermarket. Law and Order, obviously you can do the Blade Runner thing and zoom into any VHS videotape and get infinite amounts of information out of it. That technology will happen soon, I think. We just saw a 2D movie that became 3D. A Clash of the Titans. Wasn't 3D originally, but now we have the software to wrap around that. So all of our home videos, all of our old movies, they're all going to become 3D. Maybe we can look behind and see Casablanca from the other side of the screen. And then we're going to learn too much because we'll find out that back in the 1940s they only made half the outfits, half the dresses, half the costumes. What are we going to do with our lives, A, when too many people are watching us, and B, when nobody is watching us? Is there a sense of peace to be homeless and people ignore you as you walk down the street? Do you acquire wisdom by not having a connection to the gossip, by having reached rock bottom? Are we all, every single one of us, going to hit rock bottom with something so disgraceful that suddenly everybody else is redeemed? And then we start over again. We reboot. Is that going to happen? I don't think so. Society doesn't really work that way. The way we as tech-savvy people think society works is not often how it works. Someone once said that the street will find a use for something. And someone else once said that life will find a way. Those two clash with each other. The street will find a use for it, but is it the use you want? Life will find a way, but is it the way to get yourself eaten? As we go through all of these technological developments, we must understand that what we can't predict, the one thing that we don't have the mathematics to handle, is the ultimate social response to the technology that is coming down on us rapidly. So you are in a theater, and you can record that movie in HD as you're watching it. Does that mean that all movies become cloud, all entertainment becomes cloud because you can no longer trust the audience? If they can record everything you do, if they can look over the page in an airport, look over your shoulder and look at the page of a book and record it instantly and play it back later, then everything is open and nobody gets paid for anything. All open source, very cool, all free. We all have to, do live gigs, hope that we can sell advertising on our websites, that sort of thing. That works for the Rolling Stones, or for Grateful Dead, rather. So, again, 1984 trend. Who's watching whom? If we're all watching each other, do you trust yourself to watch somebody else? Do you think that when you judge somebody in a high school situation, do you remember what you said about people in high school? Would you like that not only to be on the record, but to be permanently reflected in their record? I mean, it's like Carrie over and over and over again. We all get covered with the pig's blood of technology. And we're not even psychic. We can't even set stuff on fire, so it's very discouraging. We get a reputation for things we can't do, like solving all social problems through technology. Society will find a way. Life will find a way. I think my ultimate conclusion is, yes, the technology will be there. In some respects, it'll be cool. I mean, I really am kind of looking forward to the HD camera in your glasses, to watching 3D without having to change your glasses, to doing all that sort of stuff, to finding criminals just by looking at a CCTV. Everybody doing everything wrong, and eventually we'll all wear hoodies, and then we don't wear hoodies. That's not allowed anymore. Or they have to be transparent hoodies. I mean, I've written about all of this. Yeah, they keep you warm, but you can see your face. Or infrared cameras, or X-ray cameras, or that much vaunted QED effect of you can now invent a camera that sees 2 seconds into the future. The Minority Report, all that sort of stuff, within entering Philip K. Dick territory, and man, wouldn't Philip K. Dick be having a ball right now. Philip K. Dick and Ray Bradbury and other writers of note back in the 1950s were kind of talking about the emotional resonance of all this technology. They were discussing things, in Bradbury's case, he was in Fahrenheit 451, he came across such hits as seashell radios in your ear. He came across such things as a 3D room with the Velt, wall TVs, camera helicopters tracking suspects as they try to flee. And it wasn't OJ, it was Montag, but much the same thing. With Philip K. Dick, this problem of, can you actually remember it for us wholesale? Is there somebody out there who can chart your entire life and play it back for you? That sounds like a Twilight Zone episode. We are literally coming into what we can boil down to Twilight Zone territory. The monsters are due on Maple Street. We all know something about everybody else. Some of it's not pleasant. Do we forgive it? Do we pursue it? What's blackmail worth anymore? I mean, there's an entire industry we're about to lose. I blame Obama for that, too. I think it's all something we have to take into account as we discuss the technology, as we roll it out, as we talk about, the web that knows who you are. Yes, we saw that story too, didn't we? Getting the call on the phone, Franklin. It's coming alive, and it knows who you are. Do you really want it to? Do you want to be known? Where is the moment where you can take a Zen-like separation from society and become an individual human being again? So we have these two things, in conclusion. We have the vast social brain integrating. All of us are neural nodes in this extraordinary network. The network itself does not have intelligence. We don't have the algorithms to do that. Even TCP/IP can only vaguely imitate that kind of robustness. But, as it integrates, is there any neuron in the brain that ever has a moment of privacy, when it's not being judged, when it's not being crowded around by other neurons seeking access to blood to solve problems, pointing fingers at the neighboring neuron and say, that neuron's a fool. He shouldn't be given any blood sugar at all. He can't solve anything. That's going on all the time in our brains. Is that what we want? Or do we want the distributed network of bees where we are able to fly out in the field, occasionally on our own, and then go back and do our little dance and report? The reporting is taking over the private little dance thing now. We're not able to fly out in the field and be unobserved. Where's the privacy? So that's my concern. Again, that female president that did send video, sex images back then, nobody's watching that website 40 years from now. It's boring. It's boring. And what we see as society develops is that the things that we considered so shocking, so devastating and apocalyptic, become boring. And then we move on and find other things shocking. But what if you can't predict what's going to be shocking? That is a minefield out there, because society lives on judgment. It lives on gossip. It lives on excising and cutting away. That's what it lives on. Or maybe it doesn't. Are we going to be good enough to fit all that information into our brains? I want to leave that question with you. Thank you very much for your time.
Excellent. Thank you.